Let's bring in international affairs analyst who has been monitoring the event in Algeria, Calvin Duck. It's good to have you on the program.
To be here.
Well, let's begin here. Did it surprise you that President Bouteflika is seeking yet another term?
Um, that didn't surprise me, but what I think most Algerians know and what we all can see outside of Algeria is was that really Bouteflika that submitted it? He hasn't spoken in public in years. He's even in Switzerland now, supposedly for health checks. So it wasn't surprising that it was submitted, but I don't know if he's even aware that it was submitted on his behalf, to be frank.
That is quite interesting that you say that. So, who is running things behind? Who do you think is running things behind if it isn't President Bouteflika?
Well, I believe that it's a kind of a combination of military and political elites, um, namely his brother, Saeed Bouteflika. And I think that if you don't believe that that's who's running the country, look at the letter that he sent because it is clearly their way of trying to ease out of power. And it had very little to do with Bouteflika. He really is a prop.
But then, what do you make of this new promise to the people to leave after a year? Is there even a point to this? Or what is the point?
Exactly. I think it's a farce and it's kind of insulting because here's the thing: when I was reading the letter, I love how he put in there "if I were to win," as if there's any doubt that he would win if he ran, because it's Algerian elections. They've proven that over the last couple of decades. But if you really did genuinely want to have a national conversation to then reform the Constitution, do it now. If he's going to change the Constitution to end his term in a year, supposedly it's only March. So that clearly shows he's trying to do this to tamp down the protesters and the pressure. And then when he gets there, a year will turn into two, will turn into five, will turn into.
Okay, so a lot of Algerians have come out in their numbers, and anti government protests are quite rare in the country, I'm sure you know. Why do you think that is, and what has motivated this new wave we're seeing?
Well, I think a lot of it's economic because, first of all, the reason there hasn't been much mass protest in Algeria is because of government oppression, but also, too, that they had relative stability. And before oil prices dropped, they had relative economic security. And I think because the economic situation has gotten much more dire, and then they realized that a president whom they haven't heard from his actual voice in years, that's not the person to lead a country who the majority are under 30.
Okay, well, do you think any of the opposition candidates stand a good chance of changing things in this election?
It all depends on the continuation of the peaceful protests that are going on right now. Because if that's the case, and it does force Bouteflika and those around him from forces them to recognize that he shouldn't run and that there are opposition candidates, then the next hurdle will be how do the Algerians ensure that the elections are free and fair? And that's going to be a hard one because they haven't had any in a while. But I do think there's a chance, but there are a few steps before that, and that's one getting Bouteflika to not run again and figuring out who's behind him, who's controlling everything, and making sure they don't influence the process.
Okay, just finally, some analysts are comparing this rare protest to Egypt's Arab Spring in 2011. Do you share this comparison?
I think so. And I think this is one of those times where social media is going to rapidly change popular protest and democratic development, simply because we can all see in real time what is going on in the streets in Algeria. We saw it in Tunisia, and we saw it in Egypt as well. So I do think that this could have the potential to hopefully not be violent, but kind of like in Egypt, where had it not been for social media, it would have taken a lot longer to get where they got to. And then if you look at that again, another thing that's another obstacle down the road is if Bouteflika is not running or is not going to be a part of the next set of elections, what about the Islamists? What if they are the opposition candidate that's able to win the most support among the Algerians? Is that something that their neighbors, the US, France, other European partners want? There are a lot of issues.
Well, Calvin, we'll just have to wait and see how things play out. Thank you for joining us on Network Africa.
Thank you.